They lied to you. They said money was the goal, that if you worked hard enough, saved long enough, sacrificed deep enough, you'd earn freedom. But here's the truth no one dares whisper. Money isn't freedom. It's a weapon. And those who don't know how to wield it become the weapon's target. You see, the world doesn't run on ethics, effort, or dreams. It runs on leverage. And money is just one of its sharpest forms. But like any weapon, it reveals more about its wielder than its victim. Some use it to dominate silently. Others drown in it while believing they won. Most never even learn how it works. So today we stop pretending. We tear the mask off money, not to worship it, but to control it, ruthlessly, precisely, without apology. You want power? Forget what they taught you in school. Listen to Machiavelli instead. He didn't care about riches. He cared about domination, about strategy. And for him, money wasn't the prize. It was the bait. Rule 1. Money doesn't make you powerful. It reveals who you really are. You don't need to give a man power to know who he is. You just need to give him money. Watch closely. It's a mirror more than a crown. The timid man suddenly speaks louder. The fool dresses louder. The manipulator smiles wider. But nothing has truly changed, except the spotlight now exposes what was always there. Money isn't power, it's clarity. It amplifies the voice that was already whispering inside someone's head. The weak become desperate to be seen. The arrogant begin to buy applause, and the coward hides behind his luxury, mistaking decoration for dominance. But a Machiavellian doesn't seek wealth to impress others. He seeks wealth to expose others. He watches how they move when the stakes rise. He watches who clings to him when they believe he is rich, and who vanishes when they realize he can't be used. Because the first rule of power is this: never confuse access with authority. Money gives people access, but authority, that unspoken command that bends a room without raising a voice, that is something no currency can buy. Think of it like this. A man wins the lottery. He was invisible before. Now people laugh at his jokes, invite him into rooms, listen when he speaks. But what has changed? Only the surface. Underneath, he's still a man who never learned to command presence. And the moment the money dries up, so do the invitations. This is why Machiavelli never taught you how to earn money first. He taught you how to earn control. Because money will not build your spine. It will not sharpen your mind. It will not fix your character. If you are weak before it, you will be exposed by it. You must become powerful in absence of money, so that when wealth comes, it serves you, not defines you. That's the difference between the king and the clown. One uses wealth to reinforce the structure he's already built. The other uses it to hide the rot he refuses to think. And when the empire shakes, only one still stands. So remember this. Don't spend your youth chasing money to feel like a man. Spend it becoming the kind of man who doesn't flinch when he has none. Because true power is this: to walk into a room with or without gold and still own the silence. Rule 2. Never show them what you're really worth. Visibility is not always strength. Sometimes it's a trap. You show them the house, the car, the income, the brand name stitched on your chest, and you think they admire you. But Machiavelli would smirk. Because in every display of wealth, you're giving away coordinates. You're no longer a mystery. You're a map, and the vultures are watching. Understand this: money doesn't make you safe. It makes you visible. And visibility attracts calculation, not admiration. They start doing math behind your smile. They wonder what they can extract, what they can match, what they can destroy. And the louder you flex, the easier you become to hit. You see, the strong don't show wealth. They show restraint. Because when no one knows how much you have, they don't know where to aim. And that's not just strategy. That's survival. The modern world worships transparency. Show your net worth. Post your success. Open up your life. But a Machiavellian knows transparency is exposure. Once people see your cards, they no longer play fair. They plan ambushes. They feign friendship. They mirror your movements, only to poison them. So here's the rule. Let them think you're surviving, while you're quietly taking over. While they chase attention, you build position. While they post about money, you move it through unseen tunnels. They talk, you accumulate. Not through spectacle, through silence. Machiavelli never feared poverty. He feared predictability. And if your lifestyle screams your level, then so does your vulnerability. Think of the lion in the grass. The moment it roars too soon, the prey scatters. What if it waits, still, silent, unreadable? It chooses when to strike. Be unreadable. Let your success speak in whispers. Let your presence feel heavier than your bank account suggests. And when they finally realize your scale, it's already too late. You've already positioned yourself beyond their reach. Because wealth without mystery is not power. It's a flash in red target. And you were never meant to be hunted. You were meant to hunt. Rule 3. Never depend on money you don't control. Visibility is not always strength. Control is not how much you make. It's how little they can take from you. The average man thinks he's rich because his salary clears every Friday, because his bank account blinks with numbers. But ask yourself this. What happens when someone else holds the switch? That's not wealth. That's permission. And Machiavelli would laugh at it. Because true power is not in how much you earn. It's in how untouchable that stream becomes. If your money can be paused, taxed, frozen, restructured, or revoked by someone else, you don't own it. You rent it. And your landlord is invisible, silent, and always watching. People today build their lives on jobs, grants, partnerships, algorithms, systems owned by others. And they celebrate every raise without realizing how fragile the foundation is. Machiavelli called this economic slavery wrapped in convenience. You feel secure, but only because no one's shaken the cage yet. Ask yourself, if your boss vanished, would your income survive? If the market shifted, would your empire collapse? If one policy changed, would you still feel powerful? If the answer is no, you're not free. You're a well-decorated captive. So what does the strategist do? He builds redundancy. He creates streams that can't be blocked. He earns in silence and spends without announcement. He spreads his roots across systems no single hand can crush. And most importantly, he never lets any one man, any one deal, any one platform become the lifeline. Because when your survival rests on their decision, your strength becomes an illusion. The Machiavellian understands dependency is death. So he designs for independence, not luxury. Cash flow that persists in silence. Assets no one sees. Skills that point value even in chaos. He becomes the man who doesn't just make money. He becomes the man who cannot be stopped from making money. And when that happens, he doesn't need to threaten. He doesn't need to beg. He doesn't even need to speak. Others will censor themselves. They'll obey before he demands it. Because the one who controls his own economy controls the behavior of everyone who depends on it. That's not finance. That's warfare without blood. So if you're still chasing bigger paychecks, stop. Chase sovereignty. Because only when no one can cut your income can you finally speak without fear. Rule 4. Money is the ultimate loyalty test. Control is not how much you make. People say they're loyal until money walks into the room. Then suddenly, everything gets exposed. Words vanish, promises melt, smiles turn into calculations. Machiavelli never trusted loyalty that hadn't been tested by temptation, because when you offer someone nothing, of course they seem loyal. They have nothing to betray you for. But the moment you introduce power, access, opportunity, you see what they really worship, and it's rarely you. Money is the X-ray of the soul. It does not change people. It reveals what they were hiding. Watch closely. Give a man a raise and see if he grows humble or arrogant. Offer someone equity and observe if they become hungry or entitled. Share profit and track who becomes louder when it disappears. Most people aren't loyal to you. They're loyal to the comfort your money provides, the status it gives, the spotlight it shines. Take that away and watch how quickly they become distant, defensive, or destructive. Machiavelli's loyalty is never measured in words. It's measured in behavior under pressure. The strategist never gives wealth to bless. He gives to observe. He'll extend favor, not as a reward, but as a probe. He watches who gets greedy, who asks for more, who assumes permanence in a gift that was temporary. If you offer someone a position and they grab for your power, you've just exposed your enemy. If they cling to you with desperation, you've created dependency, not loyalty. Real loyalty requires scarcity. Because when people believe the favor could vanish, they protect it like gold. So here's the play. Don't announce your wealth. Don't signal your resources. Don't flaunt what you can give. Instead, test quietly. Offer just enough. Withhold just enough. Disappear occasionally. And most importantly, observe the silence. Because in silence, you'll hear the true voice of their loyalty. Some will wait patiently. Others will grow restless. A few will turn bitter. That's your map. And when you know who stays when the faucet closes, you know who deserves to sit when the banquet opens. Machiavelli didn't believe in punishing betrayal. He believed in designing systems where only the loyal survive. That's the real game. Not controlling people with money, but using money to reveal who's already trying to control you. So never assume someone's on your side until they faced a choice. You or the money. And they chose you. Rule 5. The weak worship money. The strong control access to it. People say they're loyal. The weak dream of money. The strong dream of control over those who do. Machiavelli never chased gold. He chased architecture. Not the coins, but the system that made others move for them. Because anyone can desire wealth, but only the powerful distribute it. He understood a simple, brutal law. The one who controls access to money controls behavior. Look around. The employer doesn't need to scream. His paycheck does the talking. The investor doesn't argue. Her funding moves the pieces. The gatekeeper doesn't beg. He simply pauses, and others panic. This is the game. Don't be the one needing access. Be the one who decides who gets in. The weak want money so they can feel powerful. The strong control who feels empowered. Because here's the Machiavellian truth. People don't obey money. They obey the hope of receiving it. And when you position yourself as the source, they bend before you've even spoken. So how do you become that source? You stop thinking like a consumer and start thinking like a system builder. Build leverage, not income. Build dependency, not admiration. Ask, what do others need that I can create? What can I give once that will make them orbit forever? Because the one who distributes the check writes the rules of the game. Even kings had advisors, but it was the treasurers who whispered where armies march. And in modern life, it's not the millionaire who wins. It's the one who creates value pipelines that others depend on. A podcast that gives exposure. A platform that gives visibility. A brand that opened doors. And once people believe they need you to stay relevant, you no longer chase loyalty. You own it. That's how Machiavellians rule. Quietly, from behind the curtain, letting others believe the money is the goal, while you control the access to the goal. The best part? You never need to threaten. Just pause. Just delay. Just look away and watch panic bloom. Because when people believe their future flows through you, they'll negotiate with themselves just to stay close. Power isn't in owning more. It's in being the bridge others must cross, and deciding, in silence, who gets to pass. Rule 6. Always let. You never tell them what the game is. You simply place a reward in front of them and watch. Let them chase it. Let them bleed for it. Let them believe that money is the prize. But you're not even playing that game. Because the Machiavellian knows money is never the prize. It's the distraction. The real prize is position, influence, control, leverage that outlives the paycheck. While they fight for salary bumps and bonuses, you are building systems. They celebrate titles. You claim structure. They post pay stubs. You claim silence. Let them climb the ladder, but make sure you own the building. This is Rule 6. Let them think the trophy matters, while you design the rules of the sport. You don't correct them. You don't educate them. You simply smile and feed the illusion. Give them a taste. Let them feel victorious, but never show them what you're really building. Because once they know that money isn't the goal, they'll try to copy the path. They'll stop running in circles. They'll start thinking, and you can't allow that. So what do? You dangle the prize. You call it income, promotion, ownership. You let them chase it like mice in a maze. Meanwhile, you pay attention to movement, to need, to silence. While they focus on collecting coins, you are mapping the entire system they're trapped in. And here's the twist. You don't need them to lose. You just need them to stay moving, stay distracted, stay believing. Because as long as they think the game is about money, they'll never notice the invisible chains. And as long as you stay behind the curtain, you never need to flex. You just watch. Watch who runs, who fights, who kneels. And you never raise your voice. Because when they believe the prize is cash, they'll compete with each other, while you control the environment. That's how wars are won without a single sword, not with force, but with misdirection. The Machiavellian gives people exactly what they want, until they're too beat to escape. A raise here, a bonus there, a platform, a spotlight, an illusion of advancement. But none of it matters, because once they depend on your system, you've already won. The secret is simple. Make them fight for money, while you quietly own the reason money flows. Let them chase applause. You own the stage. Let them crave validation. You write the script. Let them hold the trophy. You hold the contract. And they will never see it coming. Rule 7. Use money to create comfort, then control the fear of losing it. Most people don't obey because they respect you. They obey because they don't want to lose what you've given them. And that's the game. You don't dominate with threats. You dominate with comfort. Give them just enough. A title, a lifestyle, a reputation they can't afford to lose. Let them taste the warmth. Let them settle into a version of life that feels earned. And then, watch what happens when they sense it slipping. Suddenly, silence becomes pressure. A missed call becomes panic. A delayed message becomes desperation. They start negotiating with shadows, apologizing without knowing why, submitting without being asked. You never raise your voice. You don't even need to speak. Because their fear of losing the comfort you built is louder than any command. That's the secret Machiavelli understood. You don't buy loyalty. You build emotional dependence on comfort. You show them a version of themselves that they could never reach without you. And then you make it feel fragile. You don't take it away. You just let them imagine its absence. That's all it takes. A delay in payment. A subtle shift in tone. A pause before responding. And suddenly, they fold. Not because you threatened them, but because they realized what you could do. That's the art. You don't lead with dominance. You lead with provision. And you make that provision feel sacred, personal, irreplaceable. You let them feel elevated, but you make sure they know who handed them the ladder. Because once someone ties their identity to the life you gave them, they will fight to protect it harder than you ever could. They'll call it loyalty, but it's not. It's fear. Fear of losing the version of themselves that only exists when you approve. And that is pure control. You never need to beg. You never need to demand. You just give, strategically. And watch how the fear of regression becomes their prison. This is how empires are kept alive, not through violence, but through comfort, carefully rationed, through lifestyles that feel earned, but are in truth engineered. Machiavelli didn't control armies. He controlled anxieties. He knew that the human mind would do anything to avoid going backwards, not because it's greedy, but because it's addicted to certainty. So you give them a new normal. You help them rise. Then you step back. Watch them build their own cage, one made of status, of comfort, of the fear of losing your thiever. And that's when they become yours, not as followers, but as dependents, silently loyal, desperate to stay warm, unaware they've traded freedom for a throne built on your generosity. You never took their power. They gave it away to avoid discomfort, and they'll thank you for it. Rule 8. The rich are not respected. They're measured. You think money earns respect? It doesn't. It earns attention, suspicion, jealousy, and calculation. The moment you walk into a room flaunting wealth, you don't rise in the eyes of the powerful. You enter their math. They measure your watch, not for admiration, but to estimate your insecurity. They note your car, not for envy, but to trace your debt. They observe your speech, your gestures, your posture, to determine how much of that wealth is armor and how much is noise. Because here's the truth. The rich aren't admired, they're dissected. To the weak, wealth is godlike. To the strong, it's a map, a path to exploit you. When your lifestyle becomes your identity, you give your enemies the blueprint to dismantle you without ever lifting a hand. Machiavelli would never trust admiration built on gold. He knew admiration built on exposure always comes with a price. The more they know, the easier you are to replace. That's why the Machiavellian doesn't wear his empire. He buries it. He lets others guess, assume, wonder. He lives under the radar while his influence penetrates every room he enters. You want to be dangerous? Be the one they can't measure. Let others chase validation. Let them flash their status. You sit still. You speak once. You reveal nothing. Because when people can't place you, they fear you. They don't know how much you have. They don't know what you planned. They don't know who stands behind you, and in that vacuum of certainty, they project power. Your silence becomes strength. Your mystery becomes fear. They don't dare offend you, not because you're rich, but because they can't tell how much damage you could do. That's respect. Not based on appearances, but on unpredictability. A man who wears his value invites others to test it, but a man who hides his depth forces others to assume it's endless. Never let your net worth become your personality. Let it become your camouflage. Because once you're seen as the rich man, you'll be treated like a target. But if they see you as a strategist, calculated, quiet, detached, they'll tread lightly. They'll measure every word, every glance, every silence. And they'll make one crucial mistake. They'll overestimate you. That's how you win without showing your hand. Because true power isn't loud, it's unreadable. Let others flex. You stay still. Let them decorate. You dominate. That's the Machiavellian way. Rule 9. Become unshakable without it. You want to know what truly terrifies people? A man who doesn't fear losing, especially losing money. Because most people aren't chasing wealth for power, they're chasing it to protect the fragile identity they built on top of it. They need the car, they need the brand, they need the number in the bank account to feel like someone. Strip that away, and their whole personality collapses. But not the Machiavellian. He's dangerous because he uses money, but doesn't depend on it. He earns, he grows, he multiplies. But at his core, he remains empty-handed, unattached, unshakable. Because the ultimate form of power is not to possess wealth, it's to walk away from it and still feel complete. That's what makes you unpredictable. They offer you a bonus, you shrug. They threaten to cut you off, you stay calm. They beg you to accept their deal, you reject it, not from pride, but because you don't need it. That's when the dynamic changes. Suddenly, you're not the one competing, you're the one being chased. And here's the twist. You didn't even raise your voice. You simply detached. Because most negotiations collapse when the other party realizes you're not afraid of walking away, but they are. That silence, that lack of emotional desperation, it bends the entire room in your direction. And Machiavelli knew this well. He didn't fear the rich. He feared the man who had the discipline to burn the throne he built and build it again from scratch, stronger, colder, quieter. Because if your power is tied to money, they can bankrupt you. But if your power is tied to indifference, they can't touch you. You become a ghost. You become a myth. No one knows your pressure point because you don't have one. They throw insults, you smile. They withhold rewards, you disappear. They raise the stakes, you walk away from the table, and the table follows you. This is the paradox of true leverage. The man who holds the most power isn't the one holding the check. It's the one who can tear it in half without blinking. So the next time they try to buy your loyalty, your silence, your soul, don't answer with pride. Don't react with anger. Just lean back and let them see it in your eyes. I can rebuild it all. You can't rebuild me. And that's the moment they submit. Not out of fear, not out of respect, but because they finally understand they're playing a game of numbers. But you are playing for control. And you've already won. Rule 10. He who controls the flow controls the frame. They think the powerful man is the one who has the most. They're wrong. Power doesn't belong to the one holding the gold. It belongs to the one who decides where it flows. Because money isn't just possession, it's gravity. And the one who orchestrates that gravity controls how others move, how they think, how they frame reality. This is what Machiavelli understood centuries ago. You don't win by collecting. You win by distributing strategically. When you hold wealth, you hold a mirror. But when you control distribution, you hold the script. You write the plot. You decide who thrives, who waits, who begs, and who fades. This is how kings ruled without swords. They didn't just hoard treasure. They channeled it in directions that made them necessary. When a man needs you for access, he reshapes his beliefs to stay in orbit. He starts watching what he says. He starts editing himself. He becomes careful, not because you punished him, but because you could. That's the genius of flow. It doesn't look like control. It looks like generosity. But under the surface, every coin you hand out is a psychological contract. It says, you rise because I allow it. And they know it. They feel it every time they check their bank account, their schedule, their relevance. They don't worship the money. They worship the flow. Your flow. Your pattern. Your gate. And here's the twist. You never give them the map. You let them guess the source. You never explain how the system works. Because once they understand your machinery, they don't need you anymore. That's why Machiavellians don't reveal structure. They reveal outcome. They show success, but not how it was built. They feed, but never teach how to hunt. They blast, but never give away the blueprint. Because the moment someone can replicate you, they can replace you. So what do? You keep the algorithm sacred. You allow access, but never mastery. You open doors, but never the vault. You create history, then let them fight to stay close. Because people don't chase money, they chase meaning. And when you become the meaning behind the money, you become untouchable. You're no longer just a man with wealth. You're the current, the stream, the frame through which others see the world. And that is absolute dominance. So when they ask, why do people follow him? The answer won't be, because he's rich. It will be, because when he moves, the world moves with him. And that's when you'll know you've stopped playing the game of money and started rewriting the rules of power. Rule 11. Be the source, never the substitute. You never want to be the one they come to when their first option fails. That's not power, that's backup. That's being tolerated, not respected. Machiavelli understood something most never will. In the economy of influence, there are only two positions: the source or the substitute. The man who writes the check or the man who waits to be paid. The woman who controls the supply or the woman who begs for access. And once you become the substitute, you become disposable, because substitutes are replaceable. They're useful until something shinier, cheaper, faster shows up. But the source, the one who creates the value, the one who defines the frame of the entire game, he becomes untouchable. He decides who plays. This is why powerful people don't chase opportunities. They create environments where opportunities must chase them. They don't scramble for relevance. They design ecosystems where relevance flows through them. And when others try to imitate, it never feels the same. Because imitation copies the outcome, but never the aura. The Machiavellian never teaches people how to match his game. He lets them feel the gap, but never bridge it. He offers just enough to keep them intrigued, but never enough to set them free. That's how you trap attention. That's how you trap loyalty. People don't want options. They want certainty. And once your presence feels like the origin of their certainty, they won't just stay near. They'll protect you, defend you, worship the ground you walk on, because deep down, they fear the chaos of not having you there. That's not admiration, that's not flattery. That's dependency in its purest form. And here's the final twist. You never ask for loyalty. You become the condition for it. You don't hold power by reminding people who you are. You hold power by being the one they can't replace, even if they tried. Because you're not part of the system anymore. You are the system. And once they realize that, they won't compete. They'll orbit.
Rule 12. When you give, attach invisible strings. Kindness, that's for amateurs. In the Machiavellian playbook, generosity is not a virtue. It's a weapon, a silent, surgical blade. Because the most effective way to own a man's future is to fund his present. You don't give to be liked. You give to be remembered, with guilt, with gratitude, with obligation. This is the art of the invisible leash. The world celebrates givers, but they never ask, what did the giver take in return? Because the price of true generosity is never listed in dollars. It's measured in debt, psychological, emotional, spiritual. And once someone feels indebted to you, they stop thinking clearly. They confuse kindness with dependence. They mistake comfort for loyalty. And they obey, not out of respect, but out of invisible fear. Fear of losing you. Fear of looking ungrateful. Fear of no longer being chosen. This is why Machiavelli warned, never repeat the favor, not unless the power dynamic stays intact. If you give too much, they forget it was rare. If you're always available, they forget you were ever essential. That's why you give once, with weight, with timing, and with just enough ambiguity to keep them wondering if they'll ever receive again. That makes it sacred. That makes it untouchable. And when something feels untouchable, people will protect it. They'll fight to stay in your good graces. They'll shrink their ego just to preserve your approval. Because when you give like a king, but withhold like a god, you don't just gain influence. You become unquestionable. They'll shape their behavior around what they owe you, not what they feel, not what they believe, what they owe. And that is real power. Not because you control their hands, but because you haunt their conscience. Not because you demand loyalty, but because they can't live with the thought of disappointing you. It's the most elegant form of dominance. You don't command them, you design them.